Good evening, everyone. Today we're going to discuss about an important issue in the form of business journalism that is related to the shares. Obviously, we know that in India there are two very important platforms are that they are providing an opportunity for the share related activities or maybe a buying and selling related activities. One is NSE and another one is BSE. So Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange also. So especially before move towards to understanding the buying and selling, it is very important to understand the meaning of the share and at the same time what kind of categories we're going to find in the form of shares also. So obviously we know that shares are a very important a thing related to a particular company or maybe we called shares are the units of ownership interest in a corporation or a financial asset that provide for an equal distribution in any kind of profits. If any are declared in the form of a dividends also. So there are two type of shares we're going to find in the market. One is common shares and another one is preferred shares. So obviously, according to the Indian Company Acts of 1956, the shares are divided into the two category. One is equity share and another one is preference share. So first we're going to understand what is the meaning of the equity share and later we're going to discuss about the basic difference what we're going to find in the form of equity and the preference shares also. So equity, the shareholders, equity shares means the holders of such shares participate in the divisible profits only after the claims are met by the preference shareholders. So they actually do not enjoy any kind of preferential right either in respect of the dividends or in respect of the repayment of the capital also. So they are entitled to receive dividends recommended by the directors and declared by the company in general a meeting. So in simple way, equity shares are those shares that do not preference shares. So the rights and the privileges of equity shareholders are laid down in the articles subject to the provisions of the act also. So this is the basic meaning of uh, the equity share. And at the same time, it is very important that we have to understand what is the meaning of the preference shares also. As I told that in the earlier itself, preference shareholders, they don't have any kind of rights. So a share that carries the following two preferential right, it is called preference a share also. So preference shares have a right to receive dividends at a fixed rate before any dividend is given to equity shares. So they will going to enjoy these kind of powers before giving towards to the equity share. The preference shareholders will going to get the maximum benefit from the side of a dividend. So preference shares have a right to get their capital returned before the capital of equity shareholders is returned. In case the company is going to wind up, the company first they have to clear the payments related to preference shareholders. Later only they have to take care about the equity shareholders. So between these two shareholdings, one is equity and another one is the preference shares. There are a lot of difference we're going to find, but today we're going to discuss about only the basic difference between preference and the equity shareholding. So the first and foremost one, right of dividend. As we discussed in the earlier itself, preference shareholders are paid dividend before the equity shareholders. So once the preference shareholders will going to take the dividend, then only after that only the equity shareholders will going to get the dividend. So the rate of dividend is also vary from equity shareholder to a preference shareholders also. So the rate of maybe sometimes the rate is very the rate of dividend will be given more compared to the equity shareholders also. When come to the management also, preference shareholders do not carry any kind of right to participate in the management of the company, but the equity shareholders, whenever the company will going to take the major decisions on that time, they will going to enjoy the voting rights also. So when come to the voting right, as I told that preference shareholders, they do not carry any kind of voting right and all, but the equity shareholders, they have a right to vote in a certain in all kind of a circumstance also. So redemption of the share capital also, in case of the preference shares are redeemable, the amount of the capital will be refunded to the shareholders after a certain period. But when come to the equity shares, a capital is refundable only at the time of winding up of the company. So these are the very important major differences we're going to find between the equity shareholding and at the same time preference shareholding also. So when come to the refund of the capital also at the time of dissolution of the company, preference shareholders capital is paid before the payment of the equity shareholders. So that's why here, even though the equity shareholders will going to enjoy the rights in the form of taking a major decisions in the company, but when come to the refund of the capital or maybe the dividend or maybe redemption of the share capital and all, the preference shareholders will going to have a lot of power. So these are two very important, I mean, these are the basic differences we're going to find between the preference shareholding and at the and the difference between the equity shareholding. So whenever we are investing the money, the first and foremost one, we have to understand that what is the meaning of the share, and at the same time what kind of categories also will be there in the form of share pattern also. One is in the form of equity and another one is in the form of preference shareholding. So today we're going to stop here only. In the next class, we're going to discuss about trends of the share market in the form of NSE and the BSE. So there we're going to understand what are the different type of trends we're going to find in the form of investing the money in the market also. Thank you.